Thanks, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to deliver an opening statement. Thank you for expanding this hearing to address the Trump administration's family separation policy. This policy shows the extremes this administration will go to punish families fleeing horrific gang and sexual violence and seeking refuge in the United States. White House Chief of Staff John Kelly bragged that forcibly separating children from their parents is, quote, a tough deterrent, close quote. But the president of the American Academy of Pediatric Physicians called this policy for what it is: government-sanctioned child abuse. Incredibly, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen claimed, and I quote, "We do not have a policy of separating families at the border, period." But it was on her watch and under her leadership that nearly 2,700 children were separated from their parents, and more than 700 children still have not been reunited with their families, including more than 400 whose parents were apparently deported and more than 90 whose parents can't be located at all. What will become of these children and their parents, who border agents sadly called, quote, deleted family units? In the name of these deleted family units, 711 lost children, and common decency, I am today calling on the architect of this humanitarian disaster, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, to step down. The family separation policy is more than a bureaucratic lapse in judgment. It is and was a cruel policy inconsistent with the bedrock values of this nation. Someone in this administration has to accept responsibility. We can have border security without bullying. We can be safe without treating toddlers as terrorists. And those who say the blame is on Congress, let me remind them, this is a policy which Judge Dana Sabra, thank goodness for his leadership on this issue, this is a policy which he characterized as a chaotic circumstance of the government's own making. Every time there's a conversation with the other side of the aisle, the first thing they want to eliminate is the Flores Standard, which for 19 years has guided this nation through administrations of both political parties for the humanitarian treatment of unaccompanied children. It's the first thing that those on the other side ask us to get rid of. It's the last thing we should get rid of. Medical experts tell us that even short-term separation and detention can do permanent damage to a child. 2 weeks ago, Congress received a letter from two of the Department of Homeland Security's own medical consultants. These medical doctors investigated the ICE family detention centers, and here's what they concluded. Quote, they pose a high risk of harm to children and their families. These whistleblowers have told us what they saw in the ICE facilities. The Trump administration claims that they are concerned about what they derisively call catch and release, comparing catching children to catching fish. But there are alternatives to detention that are more secure, more humane, and use far less taxpayer money. It's not too late for this committee to rise up, to step into this situation, and to accept our legislative responsibility of oversight. And we can change the situation very dramatically. Pass Senator Feinstein's Keep Families Together Act, which expressly prohibits family separation. Pass Senator Hirono's Fair Day in Court for Kids Act, which provides unaccompanied children with legal representation in deportation proceedings. How embarrassing is it to our nation to think that there are courtrooms with infant children, toddlers, and preteens standing before judges with no knowledge of what is actually happening to them, their families, and their lives. That is not what America is all about. We need to also pass the Humane Treatment of Migrant Children Act, which I have introduced, requiring ICE to prioritize the detention of those who actually pose a threat to national security or public safety, increasing the funding for alternatives to detention. We do not need internment camps again in American history. to intern the children and their families indefinitely because we won't act here in Congress and this administration doesn't act at all. We need to authorize the merit-based hiring of new immigration judges and couple it with Senator Hirono's bill for legal representation of the minors. I hope today's hearing is the start of a bipartisan effort to confront this administration and end this crisis. It is the least we can do for these deleted families and these lost children.